Tron Lightcycle Run, located at Walt Disney World in the Magic Kingdom, opened on April 4th of 2023. It was announced about 5 to 6 years prior to its opening, and a lot of delays it had, mainly due to COVID. But it's very interesting that they added this ride, especially in the location that it's in. It's located in the Tomorrowland section of the Magic Kingdom, right next to Space Mountain, which was its former big attraction of Tomorrowland, which you can make the argument that Tron Lightcycle Run has definitely earned that moniker of being the true big roller coaster of the Magic Kingdom now. One of the biggest lacks of Walt Disney World in general is just the use of these massive thrill coasters, and Tron Lightcycle Run kind of begins that trend in a different direction. It has 3,169 feet of track with no inversions. It's a Vekoma Motorbike Coaster, which there are not many motorbike coasters out there, but this one definitely feels very different in terms of loading process, in terms of the overall atmosphere of the ride. And man, this ride is gorgeous both in the day and at night. And today, we are going to be reviewing Tron Lightcycle Run at Walt Disney World.
Now get ready. Here we go.
Once you enter the Magic Kingdom, you make your way to the right side of the park. Once you get to the main hub, go through the Tomorrowland sign and walk towards Space Mountain. Keep to your left right next to the main shop, and that is where you will come across Tron Lightcycle Run. Thanks to the addition of Tron, it now actually completes a mini loop going from the Barnstormer in Fantasyland down to Tomorrowland and vice versa. It's actually really cool that they added this ride in terms of finally completing that loop that has once been a dead end for both areas of the park, which is very cool to see. As mentioned earlier, it is made by Vekoma, which has been Disney World's, or Disney in general's, favorite manufacturer of use. And this ride just is one of those amazing additions for this park. It has been desperately needing a thrill coaster, or at least a solid standout coaster. When the ride first opened, it was under a virtual queue system for a little bit, which is when I got to ride it. I also got to ride it recently, which is the videos you are seeing here of the Tron Lightcycle Run off-ride of during a not-so-scary Halloween event. I have a whole vlog on that as well. But when I got to ride it as many times as I possibly can. So I got a solid 2 rides on it, plus a ride when it first opened as well. So I have a good idea of how the ride functions, both in ways that you sit and so on and so forth. It's one of my favorite roller coasters at Walt Disney World currently, and I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on this ride for different reasons. One of which is, despite the length being over 3,000 feet long, which is kind of lengthy, it's actually a really short ride. Most of it is in due fact to the speed of this ride. Tron goes about 60 miles an hour. It is the fastest roller coaster in Walt Disney World, the second fastest ride in all of Walt Disney World property, just behind Test Track at Epcot. So it is a very quick ride. There's only one outdoor portion that's essentially covered up by this massive canopy that just dominates the skyline over in Tomorrowland. And as mentioned, at night, this canopy lights up and it is beautiful. This is a ride you want to experience both during the day as well as nighttime, because I feel like you get a massive change of scenery in both instances, even though the indoor portion of the ride, which is where most of the roller coaster takes place, is set in the dark with a couple of neon lights as well. So let's go through the entire ride itself and what happens. So first things first is that this is actually the first roller coaster at Walt Disney World that requires you to put all your articles in a locker. They give you a free locker that you can put your backpacks in, loose articles in, even though you could keep like your phone and stuff on you, which I actually didn't really know. You could throw your glasses on, and they have this pouch on the front of the motorbike that you can place all these other accessories in. But basically, you can't have anything in your pockets. So after you get that, it's a dual load platform. So you're directed to either side to which to load. You're given a row. Depending on which side of the bike you sit on, depends on how you load. It's a very interesting process. There's a bunch of signs at the front of the area before you load onto your bike. You then pull the handlebars towards you, which will then close in the restraints on your shins as well as the restraint on your back. These are very flexible. I really like these restraints a lot. It makes you feel loose. You're able to kind of move your back up a little bit as well, so it's not like you're fully closing everything in on you. What I also really like that this ride did is that the back car on some of the trains feature a modified vehicle for other passengers where you could sit up instead of lean forward a bit. I really like this idea. I kind of thought that maybe they would have had more trains with it, or maybe all the trains would have had that sort of modification. But I do like that some of them have that for like the handicap or for larger accessible riders. I've never tried that seat before. However, I am kind of intrigued to want to try that seat out for myself to see if there's really any difference, which is why I'm really forward to looking and going back to the Magic Kingdom one day to hopefully get a chance to experience that back seat and how it feels when you sit up, because that restraint is just a very light bar, kind of similar to Steel Force's bar, so it's very different in that aspect. So you leave the station, you make a right hand turn, and then this is basically your launch sequence. You actually see the launch sequence as you are walking into the ride itself. There's like a pre-show before it. Sometimes they show it and sometimes they don't. Last I checked, they have returned the pre-show because this ride is now officially off of the virtual queue. So they are not doing the virtual queue for Tron Lightcycle Run anymore. So now they have since added the pre-show back, I guess, to space the line out more. You watch the launch sequence go. It does a countdown. It doesn't really say a countdown, but you could go off of the lights, and then you launch forward. It is an LSM launch. It's a pretty punchy launch, I would say. It's a very fun launch. It does take your photo on both sides of that launch sequence as well. You get a really good pull when you really feel that 60 miles an hour when you get outside, and then you are sent up into this very iconic canopy turnaround, and this is the turnaround that you see when you walk up. There's some very big instances where you will see this ride just flying right through you. You could hear the roar from it. It's one of the few coasters, if I'm not mistaken, really the only coaster that you actually like get to fully interact with more than any other ride at the property. And I think this is a huge win. I love that you could just see this thing towering over you with the lights at night, with all these effects going on, the hexagon lights as it passes through each segment of the grid. It's really wonderful to see. After that, you are then sent up from a double up, which then takes you into a mid-course into the indoor section of the ride. From here, it's a bunch of turns, and you go through like 6 or 7 of these big grid gates. There's a couple of effects in there, some very clever uses of mirrors inside to change the lights on the motorbikes itself, and also a cool projection screen that follows the motorbikes as you pass through in a sequence. But all you need to know is that I feel like this ride is on the shorter end, and I think the speed has a lot to do with it. Even though it is over 3,000 feet long, which is on the longer side for a lot of coasters nowadays that have been made since, I would say that they probably could have used with maybe one more turn or one more big element, especially with how long the brake run is. I mean, this brake one is comically long. So after you get into that final turn, you pass through the final gate, you make a right-hand turn, and then you basically have this long straightaway stretch that could hold about like 3 trains on it. And then after that, you turn right again, and that takes you into the station where you unload behind where you loaded previously. That takes you back to the opposite side of the double-sided lockers, and then you can then retrieve your items. At the end of the ride, you can actually see the ride sponsor Enterprise, and they show off like a motorbike in green, which is kind of cool. So that's basically the entire ride experience of Tron and things that you could note in there. And that's all we have for Tron. I think that this ride is a lot of fun. I went into this ride knowing that it was on the shorter end, especially since it's at the one in Shanghai opened prior to this one. I will say, right now, this is probably my favorite roller coaster at the Magic Kingdom. And it makes me even more intrigued to wonder what the next course of action from here is. It looks like the villains area in the Magic Kingdom that's going to be debuting before the year 2030 looks like it's going to have a massive looping throw coaster, which has been something that the entirety of Disney World has been needing for a while. And I think that this is a great stepping stone for that, especially if this roller coaster were to launch. I think Tron is a great stepping stone coaster. Definitely the most thrilling coaster, I would say, in Magic Kingdom right now. And I would say if you are around, definitely go to Tron as soon as possible. It's likely that this ride will have the longest wait, but that shouldn't surprise anybody. It has a lot of trains. They pump out these trains so quickly. They have the great system for getting these trains out as soon as possible. I definitely would give this ride a chance when you get around to it. 48 inches is the height requirement, which makes sense for the type of roller coaster that it is. I think if it were a different type of coaster and wasn't motorbike, I'm pretty sure the height requirement would go down. But honestly, being a motorbike coaster is just so unique, especially in Florida. So I really like this addition a lot for them. So that is my review of Tron Lightcycle Run. If you enjoyed this review, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and always thank your ride operators. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you all in the parks real soon. Goodbye.
Here we go.
Park 10. Head back. Park 10. Head back.
Here we go.